Quick question before we start. Which city and time are you watching from? Let's dive in. They thought he was alone. A single human, unarmed, seated quietly in the corner of a rough space bar deep in the Shevkari trade zone. He wore no armor, no translator badge. Just a dark jacket with a faded Terran patch, too old for tourists, too subtle for mercenaries. And yet, something about him kept eyes lingering too long. The bar was chaos wrapped in neon. Alien traders barked over credits, bartenders flicked chemicals into cocktails with four-fingered hands. In one booth, a Cathari merchant bragged about undercutting Earth's synthetic metal market. Across the floor, two amphibious diplomats argued over whose species discovered warp echo first, but the human sat still, quiet, drinking something violet that wasn't made for his kind. Not flinching, not blinking. That's what unsettled them. Humans were loud, aggressive, animated. This one, still as vacuum. 3 tables over, a Grelian leaned toward his Drazathi companion and whispered something sharp. The Drazathi grunted, loudly. Terrans used to walk like they owned the stars, he said. Voice dripping across the room. Now they just crawl between scraps. The human didn't respond, just sipped. That silence, that's what made the tension real. A few more patrons stopped talking. Someone turned the music down by instinct. The Drazathi stood, bone-plated shoulders cracking, and walked toward him, slow, heavy steps, 4 feet thudding against the floor. You deaf Earthman? The human looked up, calm, detached, not a flicker of fear. No, he said, just bored. The Drazathi chuckled. Then let's make things exciting. He reached for the glass on the human's table, some drunk tribal gesture of dominance. But he never touched it, because the human's hand moved fast, fluid, grabbing the alien's wrist mid-air, twisting just enough to cause a sickening pop. No one saw the chair move. The Drazathi hit the ground a second later, flat on his back, arm half dislocated, eyes wide. And still, the human didn't stand up. The bar froze. That's when the Grelian made a mistake. He lunged. Not with thought, but impulse. His species was used to intimidation, not resistance. But the human was faster. He stood just long enough to shift his weight, sidestepped the lunge, and slammed the Grelian's head against the metal wall in one clean motion. No rage, no theatrics, just efficiency. 2 down in under 5 seconds. Now the silence was heavy, alive. Even the bartender ducked. The Yatori bruiser at the door took 1 step forward, then stopped. Because the human reached into his coat, not for a weapon, but for a small cube. He set it on the table. It lit up, flickering with grainy war footage, orbital strikes, screaming alarms, a soldier dragging an alien child from a collapsed bunker, then turning to shoot 2 drones with a half-broken rifle. The image paused. The soldier in the footage. The same man standing in that bar. I came for a drink, he said softly. Almost tired. But some of you needed a reminder. No one moved. Not the bartender, not the bruisers, not the dozen smugglers and mercs watching from the shadows. The cube flashed once more before fading. The Drazathi groaned from the floor, trying to stand, only to be met by the cold tip of a boot. Stay down, the human said. For a long breath nothing moved. Then quietly, others began backing away. Chairs scraped. Booths emptied. The human sat again, finished his drink, paid in full, and walked out without a word. The bar footage reached the Galactic Council within 6 standard hours. Encrypted, anonymous, leaked, they assumed until they noticed something stranger. The footage wasn't from a security drone, it was from a Terran recon lens, one that no longer existed in active service. Someone wanted them to see it. In the high chamber of Velkaris Station, council delegates murmured over glowing holopanels, re-watching the fight from every angle. The speed, the precision, the restraint. He didn't kill anyone, said Councilor Venta of the Jalari cluster. Exactly, whispered Admiral Rinth. That's the message. The council fell silent again as the human's face paused on the screen, still focused, unreadable. To some it looked like calm. To others, a warning. Elsewhere, on a quiet freighter 3 systems away, Cale Rourke stared at a blinking light on his console. A message. Simple. No signature. They saw it. He leaned back in the pilot seat, letting out a breath he'd been holding since the bar. Not because he feared them, but because he feared what they might do next. He hadn't gone to Shavkari to start a fight. He'd gone to confirm a suspicion that after years of silence, the galaxy had started forgetting what Earth was, what it could be. And he wasn't the only one watching. In a military outpost orbiting a dead moon, a group of Yatori tacticians debated reclassifying Terran threat levels. One suggested a preemptive strike. Another suggested silence. Back in the shadows of the rim, a rogue AI flagged Cale's footage and began simulating potential war outcomes. It found a pattern and stopped processing. Across 3 species, children heard the story before the next sunrise. A human walked into a bar, and no one stopped him. The version changed with each retelling. In one, he broke 20 bones in 20 seconds. In another, he never touched anyone. The bar simply went quiet, and everyone chose to leave. But one detail remained the same. He looked ordinary, and that made it worse. Back on Velkaris, Admiral Rinth walked alone through a war museum long shut down. He paused before a relic, an old Terran helmet from the siege of Volthar, charred, cracked, still bearing the blood of a soldier who'd refused to evacuate, holding a line no one asked him to. The Admiral ran a hand across the glass and said quietly, "They're not monsters, they're worse. They're human." Then he turned and issued a new directive. Reclassify Earth, no longer dormant. Status, Red Echo. It had been years since that signal echoed through the stars. Dormant no more. In the silence that followed, an old truth resurfaced in a dozen tongues across a dozen worlds. It's not that humans are the strongest. It's not that they're the smartest. It's that when the fight starts, they don't stop. If you stayed this long, you now understand what they feared most, not our weapons, but our will. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you for Earth's next strike.